So the episode is titled "We Can't Win," and I think Lego has been there for a while, and I'm starting to get there as well. Um, Another episode of 2009's reboot, remake, whatever, reimagining of the classic Kenneth Johnson V. We have 4 episodes left this season, 10 more for season 2. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. What would we classify this as? Because I'm thinking it's not quite a remake in name alone, because I've certainly seen those where it just
Right.
simply has nothing to do with what it was named after. Why did they name it that? It's not quite that, because I do feel like it kind of is relying on people having seen the original.
100%.
But it's definitely a hollowed out husk
That's a good
of
win.
what it should be.
And considering, like, it had the chance. I mean, the weekly series, 1985 weekly series, which we watched and reviewed here, obviously, was not the greatest either. Definitely campy, but there's campy fun moments to it. There's stuff we could enjoy. It didn't have a very high bar to cross. The 2009 version didn't have a high bar to cross at this point because, like, it didn't have to be as brilliant as what I think is brilliant as the original miniseries was, or as solid, good, exciting as the final battle was. Just really got to be a little bit better than 85's weekly series. And it doesn't ever quite get there because it doesn't know what the hell it's doing or what it wants to do.
It definitely does not know what it's doing. I don't think it understands its source material in any way, shape, or form. I don't think it understood what people liked about the original. It is, what would you call something that is a vacuum of fun? Like it is the absence of fun.
Yeah.
At least the 85 show was fun.
Yes.
Like the people who were there seemed like they were enjoying their time.
Right.
It was hokey, but it was a good time.
Everyone kind of knew the show they were making eventually. That's what it got down to. Like they might not have. I think there's interviews later on that Mark Singer and Faye Grant, Michael Ironside, they kind of weren't thrilled with how things were going. Hell, Michael Wright, Elias, had an interview where he was very happy to leave the show because he wasn't the same show he had signed up for back in the day. But they kind of knew what they were doing at this point. And they kind of just eased into it. This is a show, the 2009 version, I'd say it doesn't know what it wants to do because initially there was a controversy. I don't know if we ever talked about it on the show. And I think I talked about it with Kenneth Johnson, who had the interview at the very first episode of review way back when, where they did not want to give him any credit. Like in the credit screen, it's based on V created by Kenneth Johnson. They wanted to take that off completely because they said it was so different from his original show. And yet,
V.
And exactly, that's not V. And then, like, if you look at all the things that there's actually plenty of times that they do try to call back to something. I feel like I watch something, I'm like, I think they're trying to call back to this thing potentially, but they just don't do it well enough, and it's not obvious. Like if you're gonna call back, you kind of got to be a little more obvious about it. You got to actually play into it a little bit to give you that nostalgia boost or whatever. I have no nostalgia here, and the thing I also, before we get into the deep things of it, is like I feel like this show has so much potential as far as it has a bunch of great actors. Great. We've talked about this before. Erica Mitchell's great. I actually like Charles Measure, who plays Hobbs. I like Miranda Baccarin. I like, I forget the guy's name, Joel Gresh, who plays Father Jack.
Yeah.
I like all these actors, and I like all these performances. There's a potential to do something great here that just can't get out of their own way.
I wonder, though, we're on what, episode 8?
Yes.
Okay, so I think at this point, I would say the show had potential, but at this point, we've come too far. That potential I don't think it's recoverable at this point.
Right. They'd have to really like shift entirely. And like, I almost like almost like if they did a time jump or something so they could reset everything in a way, that might work. But even then, I kind of feel it's lost. We were 8 episodes in. We have barely had an action sequence in a show that's a invasion war show.
I still don't know what the visitors are here for.
And neither does anybody. The visitors don't know what they're here for, it seems like.
I made a joke to you earlier that I rewrote the show in my head. I took out the red Sharpie You know, I did the do. And I made it as a joke. I said, what if they're the good guys, the fifth column are the bad guys, and then Erica and Father Jack and all of them have fallen into the wrong side, think they're doing the right thing, which would be, by the way, at this point, significantly more interesting than I know whatever they're going to do.
Mm.
That was before we got to the scene with Mr. Secretary General. And then I realized I actually think I'm right, but the writers don't know I'm right.
The writers don't even know. The writers don't even know. That's possible. It's quite possible. I did get your joke. And I didn't want to comment it on the thread. I was going to let you talk about it here because I was intrigued to hear your thought process behind that. Why don't you explain a little bit further what you think? I thought about that. I'm kind of curious to see.
Okay, so honestly, it was just a joke before we got there to this scene. Well, I'll talk about the Secretary General scene later, but
Right.
Because I was so mad about it. I like I had to stand up, turn around, grab my pillow, and scream into it. Like I was like, oh my god, this is such bad writing. But I just kind of jokingly thought, because I've been watching Midnight Mass, I'm like way behind. And
Love Midnight.
our gentleman, Mr. John May, was in it playing
Yes.
the mayor. Loved him.
Yes.
He's certainly a very good actor. See, he can be
Mhm.
in the work of one of the best directors out there today.
Yes.
Flanagan. Okay, so in that, it was a phenomenal story because we don't really have good guys named bad guys per se. Well, I think one particular character is bad, but just the one. Everyone else is this very gray character. They're, people trying to do their best and sometimes have made bad choices.
Yep.
And ultimately, a bad choice, while can have, repercussions that you can't go back from. Like
Right.
that's a permanent thing, terrible thing you did that as you can never say sorry for that. You can't say sorry for putting a little girl in a wheelchair. You can't say sorry for killing a woman for drunk driving. Like but that doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person forever.
Right.
Like you can turn around and go
Right.
forward and do better from that. And this idea of what actually is good and bad is interesting. So I was watching this and thinking, so far we haven't actually seen the visitors do anything
Everything.
bad at all.
Right.
We know there's like sinister music playing.
Right.
I think there's the implication at this point, they've killed some people in the fifth column.
Right.
But wouldn't it be more interesting if you have a show that has source material and you completely flip it, kind of like the MCU did with the Skrulls and the whole thing, and they made what was in the comic books the bad guys, the good guys, and vice versa. So I just thought it'd be interesting is what if the visitors were actually here to do good, and the fifth column, which was already here, were here to do bad, and we got the people like in the FBI, in religion, and we're taking them and getting them on our side and manipulating them, kind of like in Midnight Mass, like to think that they're doing the right thing.
Right.
Because at that point, I'm like, then we do know exactly why the visitors are here because they have already told us. They have told us they're here for energy and to be friends. Right. They have already told us their goals. They're just emotionless and stupid, so they're not communicating this shit very well. So they seem sinister, which is its own inherently weird thing to do that sci-fi writers got to stop doing. But anyway,
yeah, it's also hard for actors.
It would be a much more interesting story.
I was gonna say it's even hard for actors to do that. It's hard to portray emotionless and then make it work without being boring. It comes off boring. Like it has a payoff sometimes when the emotionless person becomes emotional. That can be a good payoff, but like it takes it's like Spock, but it takes a pretty good actor. It takes a lot of like relating to that person or that character, enough of that character, at least their surroundings to feel that with them. We don't have anybody like the whole visitors are emotionless. So it's like it's different when Spock, it's one person in the scene. That's what you can concentrate on. When there's like a bunch of them and they're all there and it's kind of like, okay, they're all there. They're all, it just seems all stoic and they're talking to each other. It's like robots. And it's like, okay, sure. It doesn't have nearly the same effect. I do like your idea. I think that would have been a fascinating way to go about things. It'd be interesting to see if the fan base that would have accepted that in a way, because it could have been like you watch V and you're a big 80s V fan, you know what you're getting into. So to have it flipped on its lid like that might be too much for them. perhaps, but it would have been
But
better
at
than what we
least at
got.
that point,
It's
we
something.
would have a more interesting
Right.
conversation going back to like Kenneth Johnson's original, where at that point it would force us to confront what about our system is broken
Right.
that they are here to help.
Right.
Because I mean, in terms of like the US, we're the big, showboat country. Like other countries don't help us, we help them. So having an outside force come and say, well, we're more advanced than you on all of these things.
Yeah.
Like, what are you guys doing wrong? That could at least have a conversation that is in the vein of what the original was meant to be.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's a very good point. I did find, I jokingly said before that I couldn't find anything positive. I do have a couple things I did like, so we'll get into that when we get into the nitty-gritty details. Let me introduce the show. We didn't actually do that. We just kind of had a big, long, cold open, and I'm okay with that. But we are review. I am PLD. We are the PLD Projects Network. This is Lego, my what co-host, sidekick, whatever you want to call, whatever you want to call yourself.
Sidekick.
Like
I
sidekick?
got sidekick energy.
I like that. I'll go with that. Sidekick for the show. We have been reviewing the entirety of the V franchise so far. We did the original miniseries. I had an interview with Kenneth Johnson, the creator of the original. We did the final battle, the weekly series. We're now into the 2009 reboot. We're going to go on eventually and do some of the novels and things like that eventually. But this has been a tough stretch for us. It's not gonna lie, it's been a tough stretch for us at this point. I remember liking this a little better when I was watching it the first time through. And you have not watched this before, correct? Is that what it is? Or you?
Yeah, I've not watched this
at all.
before.
Okay, so this is all new for you. It's interesting to take it that way. So without further ado,
Yeah, I feel like I got tricked, bamboozled.
I never promised it was a good show. I just,
I didn't know I was going to be in for torture.
Well, I think you like horror so much, you gotta get a little torture sometimes, I guess. But
You would turn my love against me?
hey, we know our own. I have to use what works.
Rude. Uncalled for, sir. How dare.
Well, I'm sure you'll have a way to get me back at me at some point. It's going to be a long journey we're together, and I'm sure you'll find a way to turn something I love against me and get your vengeance.
So bad at vengeance, though. I know I seem like the type who'd be great at it, but I just don't have the creative mind for it.
I guess we all have our creative energies somewhere. I guess I should be lucky that you don't go that way.
And I'm too afraid to say anything mean about Star Wars on the internet.
That's probably fair. Hey, you know what? You just joined the wrong crowd. That's the only problem. That's the only problem with that. But if you do enjoy it, we try to make it entertaining, even if we're not loving the journey at this point. We're hoping we're at least entertaining if you do like the show. Hey, if you like the show, that's great as far as I'm concerned. More power to you. I'm happy you're enjoying it. I am enjoying talking about it, so that's a good thing. And hopefully you guys are enjoying listening to it. If you are, hit that like, subscribe, all that stuff. And we have a Patreon I do, and I try to get these episodes up early when I can. This episode's going to go up about a week and a half early now because I'm recording it a day earlier than usual. But let's break it down now. This episode was basically about, there were three major stories. We got the Chad and Anna and the Geneva bit. We have the fifth column, our main Erica Mitchell and characters trying to find some answers, wink, and trying to get more fifth columnists to join them. And we have, of course, your Lego's favorite part of every show is the Ty Lisa romance angle and things of that nature. And they overlap a little bit. But let's start with the Chad Anna storyline.
Okay.
You had something to say about this. I'm interested to hear, but I do want to tell one thing first. This is the famed Secretary General scene that Lego was talking about earlier. She had a lot of comments on. I did want to say first thing, this is one of those things I think they were trying to throw back to. I think they were trying to throw back to that time in was it the original? I think it was the original miniseries when they showed, it wasn't a Secretary General, but it was somebody higher up in the thing, and they showed Chad. They showed Christine Walsh. Like Christine Walsh, he was being very negative about the visitors, and all of a sudden at the end he turned to be positive about the visitors. I think there was an attempt to have that kind of conversation. Except for at the end, they just didn't make the guy positive. They kept him negative, and they kept. So it didn't really work out that way. But that's the kind of thing I mean. I think they're trying to throw back to some ideas about it, but then not really coming through with the finale. If they wanted to do the throwback, they could have had him converted, or at the end have him be really more positive than he was in the beginning to show her Anna's like manipulation and things of that nature. But he doesn't fall for this idea. But like, without that being said, you can comment on that, and then I want you to go into your talk about the Secretary General.
Okay. Now that you've mentioned that, I do kind of see what you're saying, that it is a little bit in the vein of it, or of the original, very vaguely. Very vaguely.
Which the problem with the show in general is that everything is vague. That's the whole main problem. Everything is way too vague. But go ahead.
Yeah. A mystery doesn't mean vague, and I think that that's not something the writers understand in this show. So it opens with Chad and Anna in a dream sequence. I'm gonna be honest. At first, I thought we were gonna cut back to like a week earlier again or something. I was being really mad about it. But no, it's just a dream sequence, which is almost just as bad. And in it, I guess Chad is having kind of like a dom sub, idea, like sexual fantasy about Anna, which I'm not sure is in his mind or if she was able to do something to encourage that. Hard to tell. Yeah, so they're at this Geneva Convention, which is the World Progress Forum, where Anna wants to show, she wants to give a speech on her blue energy. I hate the name. I hate the name so much.
Can I just say real quick? I threw that in my notes. Blue energy, dumb name. Give me some kind of sci-fi name, any kind of sci-fi name, and I'd buy it. Blue energy, because it's energy and it's blue.
Oh yeah, and it's electricity, guys. It's electricity, but theirs is clean, so which is better. Like if you can do it, like the cleaner the better. That is true. Great. But then we have this conversation that Chad has with this Secretary General, who they don't name. They just call him Mr. Secretary General. He has no name. Okay.
He doesn't need a name. He's a nothing character.
Yeah, I guess. It bothers me. Anyway, it's
bothered me too, actually. It did.
So I want to quote this verbatim. So it's Chad and him. It's off the record because he was a little concerned about talking to a reporter.
Right.
All right, so Chad asks, "You're the first person who's openly opposed her being Anna. Why?" Reply, "There are consequences for Anna's so-called gifts. Take the healing centers. The financial drain on our healthcare system is immeasurable." No, it's not. You can definitely measure it. "Thousands of jobs are being lost. Any technology she may offer," and Chad cuts him off, "well, that could put tech companies out of business. You're saying the bottom line is more important than helping people," to which Mr. Secretary General replies, "I'm saying they're the same thing." So he's saying, or the writers think he's saying the bottom line is helping people. That is clearly not what he is saying, though.
Right.
Because essentially what he's saying is like, we can't cure cancer because then what will doctors do? They'll be jobless. People need to have cancer for our for-profit medical industry. What the fuck are you talking about? This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in a show. I'm being very dramatic. I'm a dramatic person. I apologize. But like, that was so stupid. It's whatever these people think they're saying, they're not saying it. They're saying the opposite of what I think they're intending to say. And it was so annoying. I don't even know what they're trying to do here. Which is like why I came down. I'm like, maybe the V's are good. And they're just saying that people are awful. And I don't think that's what they mean to say.
They definitely don't mean
but that's what they're saying. Because this idea of like this clean energy, for example, I'm especially, this was made in 2009, we're in 2024. I'm like, hey, yeah, I bet there are a lot of people in the science community, like scientific communities, who like, will you take climate change seriously now? Another hurricane happens. How about no? Another hurricane happens. So it's not like, because I guess she used a tragedy. I don't even remember what tragedy to like try to get people to listen to her blue energy thing by helping those people. But they're like, "Oh, you bad person! You used the tragedy for to take advantage." But I'm like, like the medical industry does every fucking day.
Like every politician does every fucking day.
What are you talking about? Yes, like if you have something really awesome or something really dangerous and something bad happens, and you're like, "Hey, want to take it serious now?" I'm a ends justifying the means kind of guy. I know I'm a bad person for it, but like, yeah, do that thing.
I will say about especially about the Tabal crisis, like I almost like I want to rewind it and say, are they trying to imply that they created the crisis in order to save the people? And like that would have been a better storyline for me because they ended up not going that route. Like it would have been so much better to make them evil or make them like you want to show some bad intentions, have them create the crisis and then intervene and save the people and use that. Like that could have instead of like when Chad goes, well, what would have happened if that didn't happen? Well, we would have tragedies happen every day and we would have just saved somebody else. No, make your bad guys bad. Like show them
Yeah, like
being bad.
that's what I'm saying though. Like the more I watch this, the more I'm like, I don't think these are the visitors, the bad guys. Like, what did they do? Oh, let me check. Let me go on my list. Okay, they put Big Pharma out of business. Those bastards. They helped people in a tragedy. Monsters. What?
Right, right.
How dare they do that? Like,
I mean, I guess you can say that Anna has done something, slaughtered a lot of her own people. She had the cruelty factor of like anybody failing the empath test gets killed. There's side to things that you could say Anna is perhaps bad. She's manipulating. But the visitors themselves aren't, because we're seeing more good visitors than evil visitors now. That's the problem. Like a lot of our column visitors are coming out. And like, I think that was one thing that the original show did well. We had Martin, we had Willie. It was just about it. Martin had Barbara a couple times on the mothership, but you didn't get to see a whole lot. Like it felt like they were really a small crew that really couldn't do a whole lot overtly. Now we're seeing all these like sleeper agents and like other characters. Like this bit of column actually seems to be pretty formidable, like at least numbers wise. Like so you're making the bad guys look vulnerable, and they shouldn't be vulnerable. They should be oppressive. They should be like putting us under their boots and like not having us not having having the audience should know that, even if the people are dumb enough to fall for it, so to speak. But that's not what we're getting. And again, I agree with what you're saying. It's not what we're getting here.
yeah, and like I don't necessarily think, and I know I've said this in previous episodes, that like I still don't know why they're here. I'm okay with maybe not knowing why they're here, but you can't have I don't know their goals, and also I've not actually seen them do anything
Right.
evil
Right.
to anyone other than their own people. And maybe George last episode.
Yeah, George, that's one person, I
But
guess.
he did like do kind of an act of terror, so
Yeah. That's not, you're not entirely wrong, but like, and he's a good guy, so that's what we know. They're the bad guys, I guess. But the other problem with the sequences to me, as far as the Secretary General thing goes, we had this great, it wasn't a big breakthrough, but Chad had this ballsy moment. I think it was the last episode where he had this conversation with Anna, and he kind of like put his foot down a little bit and like kind of took some initiative towards making it more of an even keel kind of thing. And yet there was nothing resulting from that this week at
yeah,
all.
he starts back in status quo every episode.
And especially this one, like specifically, like I don't understand why he was so pro Anna at this function. Like for someone who's so much trying to like, it seems like his whole character arc had been like helping out, but being hesitant about helping out for various reasons. This episode, he seems like pretty much gung ho for Anna, like getting mad when people are against her.
I'm starting to
until
think
the end.
he's a robot that goes back to factory setting at the end of each episode.
And that's what it is, because at the end we have another kind of thing like that. Because when Secretary General does say the one thing that was maybe slightly ominous was the fact, like, why are they, if they're visitors, why are they setting up like they're staying, or that like they're becoming heavy, whatever they're using. And you see them, like she sees them smoozing with people, and Chad kind of sees that too and knows that Anna's doing more behind the scenes or whatever. But then he starts going like, oh, look, he has this like look on his face like, oh, I'm so surprised. Like you've seen this before. You've seen this like the entire time. This has been your revelation the entire time. You can't keep having the same revelation over and over again.
Okay, now this is such a nitpick on my part, but the fact that they're still called bees because they're visitors when their intention was never to just be a visitor, but the
Right.
fact that, like, even the 5th column like, Ryan, who's the same species, unnamed species, calls them bees, it's increasingly annoying.
I agree. I 100%
Give them a
agree.
name.
Give them something, or even have the humans call them a visitors or something, just something. Like, it's just V's is just such a piss poor thing. I don't like, especially considering the 5th column uses the V as a symbol on their ear. Like, their cut mark is a V in a way. Like, it's like you're making a V, so that's like a V, or that's like what are you trying to say here metaphorically speaking? Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous about that. And last thing I want to say about Chad is that I feel like it would have been much more interesting if the idea was that after his, because he stepped up last week and we kind of thought that he might be fighting back, but then he kind of went back and said, "I'm going to help you as long as you give me what I want." It almost like it was more of like a cutthroat kind of thing. Like he was like, "Oh shit, he's not a really good guy," but he's taking, like, if he started being pro Anna and this whole thing from the beginning, because even though he was like doing it knowing she was bad, like that would be a slightly better angle. And I don't know if I don't want to blame Scott Wolf's performance. I don't know if it's, I think it is the writing more than anything else, but it just doesn't come off that way. It comes off as if you're naive and innocently supporting again, like a little kid until the end. Like, give me
Oh,
something meaty like that, a meteor like that. I could have gotten more interested in the angle, I think.
I don't know if it's a combination of bad writing and maybe he isn't the right person to play it, because I do think he generally does come off as, like, a very, like, naive, kind of
Yeah.
sweet character in almost everything he plays.
Yeah.
Or it's just bad writing.
It could be either
It's
or.
hard to tell.
I do like Sal Wolf generally. I don't think he was cast well. I don't think there was a good casting choice for him. I just think he's just too.
But it's also so strange because it's like you're looking at the show that has all of these great actors in it, and I feel like the only person doing a good job here because it is so poorly written is Father Jack.
Probably not Joel Grush, and he doesn't
Joe,
have a lot to do. That's the thing. He actually gets. I think that might be one of the reasons why is that he has lesser things to do. He has some meaty moments, but they're not like needing sustained things over the course of the entire episode. Really, I feel like.
and it's also unfortunate because, like, even when we do get like good moments from these actors who are, like, again, great actors, and I've seen them in so many things that I love them in, it's generally undercut by, like, some of the worst editing choices and camera work I've ever seen.
It's bad. It was bad. They had a couple of those quick scenes again too. I'm kind of like, why are you putting that there? Like, you just tacked it on, like the blue energy thing at the end, when all of a sudden it goes up to the scene real quick and it's Marcus and Anna going, "Why are you doing this on blue energy?" "Oh, so we can cut them off when they need, if we want to, or to get them under control." But it was like a two sentence thing that was just kind of like thrown in the middle of other scenes, and I'm kind of like, you could have attached that somewhere else and gotten the same part without having to like jump back and forth like that.
Can we talk about the scene with Ryan? When he's
Which
you know
which one?
oh, okay. So it starts so
Oh,
there's a
the
scene,
okay.
he's on his
Yes.
phone with
Yes.
his still trying to find Val,
Yes.
and it starts with the camera at a really low angle looking up at him.
Right. Okay, I know what you're
Okay.
talking about now. Yep.
And then we're getting, like, I don't know why these people cannot figure out what a tripod is, but they seemingly can't. So the camera's every time someone's on scene, the camera is like shaking and moving because someone's holding it and
Right.
maybe needed to have more to eat that day because they're swaying. Then we go to like a hard like Dutch angle while he's at the door letting his doctor friend in, and then we get this scene. It's like in kind of like they're in kind of like the foyer by the door, and
Right.
we're in like the camera seems to be in like maybe a living room where it's very high up in the ceiling, and we kind of just have like the rim of like maybe the wall or the doorway just in frame
Right.
at the top, and then we're looking down at them at this weird angle. And what the fuck are we doing?
Right. Right.
Like,
There's no
we
reason to.
started at the floor, we went to a Dutch angle about like level, and now we're on the ceiling. Like, when you do a shot, you don't always need to have the shot be artistic, but if you are going to do something at a very strange angle, it should be for a reason to elevate the scene.
To draw your attention to something.
Yeah, or just like sometimes it's just for like an emotional impact. You want to make a character look smaller. You want to make a character look larger. There's a really great movie called Chum Scrubber. Every time we have the teenagers on screen, we aim the camera low, or we aim the camera high to make them look smaller. And when the parents are on screen, we aim the camera low to make them look bigger, because we want to show that the teenagers are younger and in less of a position of power. That shows we understand how framing works. This show, I don't know what the fuck is happening, but it bothers me on a deep fundamental level.
It's vague and not purposeful. That's what the problem. And the problem is all throughout the entire show. And I agree 100%. It just seems like it's random. It's done randomly for the sake of trying to be artistic. It felt like the director just wanted to show off I can make a cool shot.
But he doesn't.
But it doesn't.
Because even then, when the camera was like at the high angle, why is the door like, so it's just like a white rim at the top of the screen? Like, go just a little low. What the?
We don't need to see that. Right. I agree.
It's interesting that the level of incompetency in the writing and the camera work and the editing, because editing can save so much.
It can.
Editing can also ruin so much. We were talking about Salem's Lot earlier. The newest one. Editing can make or break.
Absolutely.
All of this stuff. And I wonder if the editor just did the best they could with what they were given, or what. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to know who to blame. There's a lot of blame to go around, and nobody could save it. So I hate to point out people, so I try not to, but the director did make that shot. So I guess you can definitely call him out for that.
And they neglected to buy that poor, weak cameraman a tripod.
Absolutely.
Tragic.
Let's talk about the rest of since we're there. Let's talk about the rest of the Ryan and Val storyline situation. Not a whole lot this week.
Have to.
Not a whole lot to it this week, anyway. To be honest with you, Val left.
It advanced the plot so much that now she knows her baby's weird, and she goes to a healing center, which definitely made sense. I guess, because she's apparently the biggest moron on the planet, and then the healing center guy realizes there's something up with baby, and he wants to, I don't know what, but he doesn't get you. He's interrupted. We don't know what nefarious plot he had going on.
Right.
And she's saved.
It felt like it was implied that Anna or somebody higher would be interested in this and to see what's going on. That's about all.
Well, that's only an implication, PLD. We don't know for sure.
It's true.
I think he was repairing a syringe, right? He was going to inject her with something.
Right.
And then that's about it. Ryan saves her.
And Val goes with him because he saved her, which, okay, sure. I will say her going to the healing center didn't bother me as much, because I could see someone who is all in on the visitors at this point, which she's not had any negative things about the visitors. The healing center is this big new current thing, and there's miracles happening and all this kind of stuff. So maybe because she doesn't know where to go, she doesn't want to go to anyone that Ryan knows about. She's usually trying to get away from Ryan, so the healing centers are there. I could see that to a degree. That didn't bother me as much, but just everything else kind of did. We had the conversation on the phone. He tries to call her back. It's like, Ryan, you effed up. You effed up. And then he brings the doctor in. The doctor's like, you got to find her. Like, we know we have to find her. This is not like we didn't need that scene. Like, it was like something we like.
Oh, that's a lot of this show.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of tell instead of showing, or at least understanding your viewers have an intelligence of some kind to understand what's going on. You've already said this, that you had to find her. So there's no need for that scene. I think a lot of the scenes, actually. So Ryan, at the end of the day, saving her, fine. It still didn't go anywhere, didn't advance. Like, I still feel like they're still cycling, doing not much to it.
But now, in the next episode, do you think when we get back to them, he will have already told her, or we're going to actually see her reaction to being told?
That's a great question, because I don't remember. What would your choice be?
I would prefer seeing her reaction because I'm
Right.
like I've mentioned before, I'm very into character.
Right.
This show is very into plot,
Right.
and it tries to be. So I feel like it's probably going to be he's already told her.
Yeah, I feel like that's the easiest way for them to do it, but like the easy is not the best way. And I agree with you. I would rather see that because that's the kind of meaty thing that can overcome bad plot, a good performance because of emotional stuff going on. You can go with that and you can like, forgive other things when you just kind of skip it. It's like, why would you skip that? Like the plot from okay, we know she's got to find out.
Also, because
That's
there's so much buildup.
right, and exactly the point. Because we've had that build up. It's like having the build up and then like not getting what you want. It's like, what's the point? What's the point of all the build up? You have to let the steam out of the tea kettle in order to have a good drink of tea. So I don't know. I don't know if that even made any sense, that analogy, but I'm not a tea drinker, so I actually don't know if that made any sense at all. I know
What
you
are
are.
talking about?
Hey, I'm happy you are.
I mean, I'm really not. I drink the one tea. I put a lot of honey in it.
Right.
It doesn't have any caffeine,
That's
and,
fair.
I just drink it because, sometimes you need a hot glass of water with honey for the throat.
That does help. But yeah, that's really all there is to Ryan's. The only other scene Ryan is in, we're going to get to because it's where they overlap a little bit with the Erica and the rest of her assistants group. We'll get to that. But before we get to that part, let's talk about Erica and Tyler in the beginning, and then Tyler's whole journey or whatever with Lisa. So Erica
Oh, I
starts out.
completely forgot who Tyler was. I'm like, "Who are you talking about?"
Sean Donovan.
Absolutely.
That's what
I
we're talking about.
don't
Sean Donovan.
I don't know a unnamed child. I don't recall this person.
Fair, fair.
Um, Stupid Boy. Yes, that one. Erica and Tyler. It's the exact same thing we had last episode, continued into this episode. Some of that dialogue may have been repeated. We
Yeah.
learned nothing new. He's sad and decides to go to the ship.
And she looks at the camera on the jacket again, knowing she can't say anything. It's like you've told us this, you've shown us this before. We understand. We're not stupid.
Well,
Erica Elizabeth Mitchell does decent work with crap scripts. But Ty is just not a good performer, and I don't buy him for a heartbeat.
also annoying.
Yes.
Like writers, please understand, unless you have a real good reason to have an annoying teen in your show,
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Just make them a normal human being who happens to be young.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's going to go up to the ship and whatever. But on the ship, there is something else happening. This is actually kind of separate from the storyline. We have the Lisa storyline now, where Joshua has to test Lisa for empathy. The whole empathy test is still going on, supposedly. I guess Lisa's the last one they're getting to. Now, Lisa gets the fifth element test,
Oh,
and
I named it the human empathy trademark test.
oh, I'll try to remember that.
That was in my notes. I felt it was very important.
And pay your royalties later on. So she fails the test, which is unsurprising because this is where the storyline's been going since day one. As soon as we found out who Lisa was, as soon as we found out what was going on, you almost knew there was going to be some kind of feelings on her part. It didn't make sense. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's a good storyline, but it felt like an obvious storyline to me. Did you feel that way, or is it just because I watched it?
I simply did not care enough.
That's fair.
So I just literally forgot who Tyler was. Like I had nothing. I know you don't like her, but I do like
Supergirl.
Lisa. I think it has potential to be an interesting story if it wasn't so pervy and weird.
Yeah, there's that.
Because she does end up She does end up knocking boots. They did the horizontal hokey pokey, which is where the story was leading, and it feels like it's a mixture of she's getting feelings and she has a duty to whatever her mom's plan is, which I don't know, but again, feels very pervy and weird. It's very, I don't know, like, I'm a fan of fancy. I love a Reba McEntire, but like this queen quite it. Maybe if they were like gonna die if she didn't reproduce or something, but that doesn't seem. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have enough information. It's just coming off creepy.
I get it. I don't disagree. I think part of it for me, again, you've said it. I don't like her acting. I never have, and I think her performance. When you have a script like that, she has less chance of getting it over than someone like Elizabeth Mitchell. And I would love to see someone with better chops, kind of really having that torn sensation where she's gone in, she's being ordered to do this for whatever reason, but she's still got a loyalty to her mother, perhaps. That could be interesting with someone with better chops, but I don't think it works because of who she is.
Oh, I completely forgot. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The only other part I was going to bring up was the Joshua part. So if you want to.
Okay, so wait, I forgot. That when she and Tyler, so Lisa and Tyler are doing the deed. There's a part where she seems like kind of pulls back and he asks something. I don't recall what he said, but it's something like, "Is this okay?" And she says no. And then they go back to doing the thing. And I'm like, well, that was. If I'm the boy, I'm stopping. I'm like, well, let's unpack that a little.
Right.
Do you actually want to do this or what?
Right. It's weird. It is a little creepy at this point.
She did seem unhappy to be but like she seemed to be going along with it, but not happy about doing it. And I'm like, as I'm in a situation, where I'm being intimate with someone and they don't seem like they're having a good time, like I'm stopping. I'm like, well,
right.
Weird.
Unless he's just misreading her, which could because of her like kind of like the visitors are emotionless, so he's kind of misreading the situation potentially. Because he's dumb. He's dumb. It fits. He's a dumb character. It fits.
Yeah, but he's very emotional boy.
Yeah, that's true.
And it does seem like he seems like the type of boy who would be like, at bare minimum, being like, am I not doing it right? I'm assuming he's a virgin.
Yeah, I think so. That's why they're playing it, I think. But he is in love, so he might be convincing himself of the other things otherwise, too. That could be a tricksy thing in your brain. It could be that endorphins that you don't notice.
Boys are
they are. I play me like when I was young and dumb. I might not notice things because I'd be like, kind of like, oh, the girl I love, I'm kissing her, awesome. And then like, I found later on, oh no, that's not cool. Boys are dumb. Boys don't realize things. So nice. I think that's part, especially if they're in love, like Tyler is. I use that term very.
Also, he just seems like the kind of kid who is very, at the moment, feeling betrayed and like really needing reassurance. So if he's doing something and it seems like he's getting a negative response, it seems like he would be very in his head about that. And like he's someone who is very confrontational. So it just seems like he'd be like, well, okay, now hang on. Do you actually like want to be with me? He seems like that kind of boy. Like, do you really want to be with me?
Yeah, that could be. But
then the writers are just thinking, well, he's a teenage boy. Of course he's pervy. But you've not written him really like that, though.
True. That's a very good point. Okay, the rest of Lisa's stuff's pretty easy. Like with going to talk to Joshua now. This is the one part I did like a little bit. Joshua had a scene where he tells her, all right, so she fails the test. And he's like, well, you know what? Sorry, this is your mother's rules. You're going to be immolated or whatever. But then, of course, she's allowed to leave the ship after that. Seems like a very weird thing. But I guess daughter of the leader, you probably have some kind of pull, I guess. But we have the conversation he has with his, I don't remember this guy's name. Joshua's like new best friend. That should have been the lover character that got killed in the first like third episode, whatever it was. You know what I'm talking about.
Why?
That's the guy. That's the guy who should have been here the entire time. Instead, we got a new guy who I still don't remember. I remember that he was the one who helped Ryan out.
You know, I had his name written down.
Loverboy or the
But
new one?
I think I had both.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But
I'll
I'd
remember.
have to find my notes, and I'm not gonna.
Fair. They have an interesting conversation where his idea is where he's like, well, we can get rid of one of our biggest, technically our biggest enemies. And Joshua's like, well, but yeah, maybe he's turning like us. He could be a good ally. It's that whole what to do in that situation. And I like the angle he took at the end where he obviously didn't choose Simulator. He chose to lie to Anna and say that she passed. But he doesn't like exactly welcome her with open arms either. Like he's not naive enough to say, "Oh, welcome to the fifth column," or anything like that. He kind of just basically says, "It's because she asked him why. Why did you pass me?" And he's just like, "You're going to do me a favor." So it's like this kind of like halfway point that I didn't think was actually possible, but Joshua played it off pretty well. I thought. I kind of liked small segment. I did like that aspect of it, though. I think it was a nice little touch.
I wish I liked it more. I was just like, don't care.
Well, it's hard when I get past that. It's hard to get past that. I get that. I understand that. So that was one of the few things I did enjoy. So from that,
I think that was one of the better parts. Yes.
okay, I'm trying over here. I'm really trying.
I am too. You have a lot more success than me, PLD. You're just better than me. But you're like a positive pro, and I like to think of myself as someone with a pretty sunny disposition. But like I only have so much energy. I could only smile so hard before my face hurts.
I get it. I totally get it. All right, let's get into the rest of the episode, which is basically the other part of it. Erica going to the FBI scene. There's 3 people dead, marked with the resistance mark, fifth column mark, or whatever. And they have her going to investigate herself now. And they try to make this tense scene out of that. But Erica kind of just plays dumb. And I'm like, okay.
This dialogue. Oh, Lord.
The dialogue was rough.
Lordy.
It was rougher when she got back to the rest of the crew. That scene was actually worse, I thought, as far as dialogue went, because they had this whole situation where they realized that their big rallying cry of John May lives worked. And now fifth columnists are coming out of the woodwork. Still stupid, but okay. And then they're dying. So what did they expect to happen? Like, what was the idea behind the rally? Like, your rallying cry was meant for them to come out. Did they really think Anna was just going to let them come out and go against her? Like, it just seems like a stupid thing. Like, we got to stop it. You just did it.
Also, the fifth column is so inept. It's baffling.
It is. I mean, again, I think the throwback is trying to make it so the resistance is like the everyday people. It was the gardener, the anthropologist, the whatever. That was what made the part of what was successful about resistance in the first place. You had the Ham Tyler, or in this case, Hobbs is like the professional kind of guy. But the rest of the resistance are supposed to be normal people. It doesn't work out with Eric as an FBI agent, of course. That makes things a little weird too. But it's their attempt to try to do that with the rest of the fifth column. This high school science teacher who couldn't have been more annoying if he tried. I couldn't deal with anything he was saying or doing.
It was. Oh my God. Also, I'm so tired of like military being betrayed. Like everyone in the military is a man who was in a active war zone. in media. It's like, most people who are in the military probably just sat as guard duty at the
Right.
gates or like did paperwork.
Right. I mean,
Like
I I would
most
argue
people
that
in the
that's
military have not been in an active war zone though, actually. Like, well, what are we doing?
well, I get I understand what you're saying, but I would argue that that makes it the more interesting character, though, is that people want to see people who are involved more, that they actually have more to say that way than just somebody who was just there. I mean, I feel like that'd be
I do get that. I do get that. But for this particular character, he's like, "My grandpa did this. My
yeah.
dad did this, so I need to do this." But he's literally sobbing and holding the gun and shit, and I'm like,
You're
"No,
not for this life, my
I'm
friend.
I'm I'm done with this. I'm
Well,
just so
exactly what did
annoyed."
he think? What did he think was gonna happen? I asked him what the resistance thought about like, he says at one point, "We're coding messages and we are getting weapons to people." Like, "You have weapons. What did you think was gonna happen? This is like, you're getting weapons, you're gonna be involved in firefights. You can't, like, not you can't be that clueless about it."
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, you could be the person doing like the messaging. That doesn't
Mm,
necessarily mean that you're going to be anywhere near a firearm yourself. You're
I
just
guess.
doing the logistics.
I guess. Just felt like they didn't know what the characters they wanted to be, and they chose, like, the wrong angles for a lot of the characters. It's the story of the show,
You
though, to be
had a
honest
lot
with
of characters. I would say all.
you. Joshua's been okay. Joshua's been okay,
Who?
I think.
Oh
Joshua,
yeah,
our
I that one I remember.
our boy in the ship, he's been okay. Um, so the worst part about it is, to me, and this is the part where I yelled at the screen, is we figure out that this Alex Caruso is the guy they have to find. He's the guy that survived the scene that Erica investigated in the beginning, and they put this plan together to use him as bait because they know the visitors have cracked their code. And that's what led them to kill 3 people before. So they want to get a visitor to come in to capture him alive. And as Erica says, so they can finally get answers. Erica, you have a visitor on your team. You have a visitor who's been there the entire time. He knows other visitors, like the doctor, like these other people, like John May, like all these other people. He knows every time you talk to him, he's like, "Oh, I know a guy who can do that." You should have had access to every bit of information you could possibly want by now. I don't understand, like
So tired, PLD.
it's so tight. It is. It's like you're right. He's right there. You can get your answers. You don't need to kidnap an assassin who honestly would probably know less. Because if you look at the people who go out to assassinate, it's usually like the assassin who doesn't know anything about the higher stuff. Like they're sent out to do their job. Their job is to kill this person. Okay, and then go back. What is he going to tell you that Ryan can't?
It's also like usually an assassin isn't even necessarily a member of the organization that
Right.
they've been hired from.
And that happens this time too, because we end up getting Benny from Supernatural. Ty Hilson is the human guy who was trying to assassinate the fifth columnist.
It's so annoying that they're like so aggro that he's a human. It's like, you're working with a visitor, right? Like,
Right.
like it's so stupid. Like, historically speaking, find me any kind of war or any kind of like hostile environment where we didn't have people who were targeted as like the victims who joined the oppressors. That's what always happens. There are some who will because they think that'll save them.
And this is classic V. They had collaborators. Like,
That's fine. It's just the
which
conversation
no, no,
about it.
no, 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 I know. I'm saying
Okay.
that's what they should have gone with, because
Yes.
they instead of they don't introduce the collaborators at all. All of a sudden at the end, it's this big, oh, it's a human working for them. They should have been building up the collaborators before, as the people who are so gung ho about living aboard with the visitors, and they get very mad when they hear about the terrorist fifth column and stuff like that. They have to build it up so you can see that work. And then at the end, he's like, instead of the way they did it, it almost made it seem like, remember in the 85 series, we talked about how the laser blasts were so expensive that they basically took a lot of the laser guns out from the Resistance. The Resistance had to use like the human weapons again. I feel like it was a budget cost thing. We don't want to show any sci-fi weaponry, so we're not going to have a visitor assassin. We're going to have a human assassin using regular, like, it just seemed like a cheapy way out. Like, not again. And this is our big action scene. This is like the biggest action scene we've had since like the first episode, where we had the fight in the reveal of Alan Tudyk. That was like the other action scene we've had. It's 2 action scenes now, really, in 8 episodes in an invasion/war series. Like,
Well, see, this is not an action show though. This is it wants to be. I feel like it wants to be 24.
right, but 24 had a lot of action in it, though.
I've never watched it.
They have a lot. There's definitely a lot of action to it. I mean, it's not as like, I'm not saying they need to be like big, like the camp battle or like the water processing plant.
No,
I mean,
this
even the
one.
big
I'm
battle.
sorry, this does
is
not want
like,
to be 24. I'm completely wrong. It wants to be West Wing, but it
That's
is
even
no
worse.
West Wing.
It is definitely no West Wing. It is. It isn't even East Wing, or North or South for that matter. It just seems like this show needed a bit of, especially given the fact that we're all the weaknesses it has, all the plot points it's going over, the mysteries, the vagary. You can almost get away with more if you blind them with a little bit of action, just to make it exciting a little bit, instead of being so vague and meandering and drawn out and repeating scenes again. Give us a little sci-fi laser blast here or there. Give us something to kind of hang our hat on, at least. Because I mean, the campy sci-fi show had some action bits which made some episodes more fun. Seeing Mark Singer in action was fun. Seeing Michael Ironside in action was fun.
Well, but PLD, we got the blue energy.
Yay. Yeah. Hey, I don't know. The only lie I liked was when Hobbs made the baby lizard joke, because it felt like very Ham Tyler-esque. Another little throwback right there, I think.
But it was so stupid that was enough to set off Ryan.
Agreed. I mean, yes and no. I mean, he is amped up anyway because of Val missing and everything else, maybe, but it still is. You're not wrong. It's still pretty dumb. But I think, honestly, that's about it. Do you have anything else you wanted to mention about it? Do you have anything else about the Resistance part? Anything?
I got nothing.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair.
Nothing.
4 more episodes, folks, into the series. First season's over. 4 more episodes.
I might not survive.
You will. I have great faith that you'll survive. Next episode is an episode called Heretic's Fork. Heretic's Fork. I'm going to read this out to you. Erica, Father Jack, and Hobbs realize that the V's have no names and addresses of the Fifth Column members and must take drastic measures to protect them. Ryan finally reveals to Val that he's a visitor. He tries to save Val by bringing her to his friends, but the 2 are tracked by one of Anna's soldiers. Chad begins the process aboard the mothership's medical bay to have his aneurysm removed. He didn't do that already? Filming it for the TV news show. Soon after, Chad shows his gratitude to Anna and expresses a desire to expose the 5th columnist as terrorists. Sweating your whistle. So we have to look forward to. So, Lego, where can the folks find you?
Lego Rants on YouTube, or the Unhinged Binge on YouTube and Spotify. Tragedy. This show's a tragedy. I don't even know. My brain is done.
We're going to see how much more done she can be next time, folks. I am PLD. You can find me at Paul_Denuzio on the old Twitter, and Paul Denuzio on Blue Sky. I've been trying to post more there as well. You can find me all over this channel. Every week I do a Star Wars show with Maddie Gunner called Holy Snokes. Every other week I do a show with PJ Campbell called Two Mediocre White Dudes on Film, where we cover franchises. We did have some scheduling glyphs. So just in time for Halloween, we will then begin our Nightmare on Elm Street coverage. I got to rewatch it again. God, I love that movie so much. The original Nightmare is still one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Let's see what else. I got my Crown Jewels. This is God. Ready. Robert Englund. Great. Robert Englund is the greatest. I love him and everything he's done. But yeah, and that'll do it. We'll see you in a couple weeks, folks. And until then, as always, pray Te Nama.